sting of any sort takes a great deal of effort, and this is no exception. Operation Ohio Knows had over 90 agencies that participated. Many of them, of course, were law enforcement, and you see law enforcement represented here today. We're grateful for that partnership. It bears saying that we do not have state police in Ohio. We don't have a statewide sheriff's office in Ohio. Law enforcement is local, and the State Attorney General's office, the BCI, our resources are all here to assist local law enforcement, and without them, there are no task forces, and operations like this don't happen. We, during Operation Ohio Knows, we collectively arrested 161 men trying to buy sex, 3 of whom were trying to buy sex from someone they thought was a minor, a child. This is the largest human trafficking sting in the history of the state to date. And we also want to thank, in addition to law enforcement, our human service, our social service providers, because it's important to remember that in every one of these situations there is a survivor, a victim who needs to be not re-victimized, but aided, supported, and helped. So by our partnership with the social service agencies, we are actually doing something that's a bit of a hybrid, and I think candidly is a model for a lot of law enforcement to recognize the human dimension of crime. It's important to recognize that we cannot arrest our way out of human trafficking. Now, I think that it's important to also recognize that arrests are part of this. And what Operation Ohio Knows focused on was the buying of sex. For the first time in Ohio, we have a criminal statute that makes it a more serious crime to buy sex than to sell sex. And that's an important distinction, because people who traffic other humans are doing it for a really simple reason: money. And if there's no market, if there are no buyers, there will be no trafficking. Now, getting completely rid of the demand for purchased sex is probably a little bit of a tall order, but reducing the demand means that we reduce the number of people who are victimized by human trafficking. So it's often said that prostitution is the oldest profession. I notice that that is usually said by politicians who I think are in competition for that oldest profession line. But here's the difference between prostitution and human trafficking. It's as simple as 2 versus 3. Is there a third party that's taking some or all of the proceeds of that transaction? And here is the key thing about Ohio Knows and about demand reduction and arresting Johns. When you are the buyer, you have no idea whether you're dealing with one person or 2 people on the other side. The pimp, the trafficker, does not show up and sit in the corner to watch the thing. The survivor does not tell you, I don't really want to do this, but if I don't, I'm going to be beaten. Or if I don't, he's going to withhold my drugs, and I'll go into withdrawal, and I can't deal with that. Because we don't know. because we don't know, anybody in Ohio, anybody anywhere who purchases sex is assuming the risk that they're complicit in human trafficking. And that means that it's not a private matter between two consenting humans, but is a matter for all of our society. If we are interested in justice, if we are interested in the basic dignity of human beings, we have to be concerned about those who purchase sex. I'm going to turn this over to our operational partners to give you more details, but I want to mention this to you. During this operation and the 161 arrestees, we arrested a home improvement contractor, a city council member, a firefighter, a teacher, a professor. We actually arrested a pilot who makes over $200,000, but not only was purchasing sex, he haggled and got the price down to $15. We also arrested a guy with a 2-year-old in the car. I shake my head and can't believe those stories. It happens everywhere. A professor, a city councilman. This is not just something that happens down in the hood in the city. It's in every county, it's in every town. This is happening all over Ohio. Poor neighborhoods, rich neighborhoods. Educated, uneducated. Black, white, it doesn't matter. It happens everywhere. And that's why this fight is so important. And I will not rest until no one in Ohio buys or sells human beings. Very proud of our partners. Again, this is a collegial effort. The TV shows you see about the feds coming in and bigfooting, or the chief of police bigfooting the sheriff, or vice versa, or the state coming in and taking over, and all the squabbles between agencies. I'm happy to report that here in Ohio, Operation Ohio knows that wasn't the case. Everybody had an oar in the water. Everybody was rowing in the same direction. And I want to thank from the bottom of my heart the people that are part of these 90 agencies, 90-plus agencies, for your selfless service and dedication. With that, I'd like to ask Chief Bryant and Sergeant Dana Hess to come forward, representing the Columbus Police Department, and to outline some of the additional operational details that I know our friends in the media will all be interested in.
Good morning. Thank you. I would like to thank Ohio Attorney General Yost and his office for partnering with CPD, other law enforcement agencies statewide as well as all the victim services that assisted in this operation. Just like Attorney Yost stated, we cannot arrest our way out of this situation. During this year's operation, in an effort to combat soliciting, prostitution, and human trafficking, Operation Ohio Knows accounted for over 200 arrests, 10 missing children recovered, and a confiscation of some illegal firearms. On September 27, 2021, City Council passed an ordinance to address the ongoing issue of solicitation. This ordinance is aimed to hold offenders accountable as well as assist the victims. The Columbus Division of Police is committed to a comprehensive anti-human trafficking plan that is built on 5 pillars: criminal justice, victim services, technology, education, and community collaboration. The goal is to eradicate human trafficking by continuing to work with the courts, business, schools, medical facilities, victim advocacy groups, and other community partners. We will continue to partner with all our agencies statewide in an effort to address this very serious issue. I'd like to bring forth to talk more about this. Thank you so much. Absolutely.
Thank you, Chief Bryant, for your support and for being here today. I am so honored to work alongside the best Attorney General in this country, Attorney General Dave Yost. General Yost and his staff truly understand what it takes to fight the crime of human trafficking. So thank you, sir, for your dedication, your support, and your vigilance to this very important issue. I am also incredibly proud to serve with the finest human trafficking task force in the world, the Central Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force. Our team is comprised of 11 agencies and nonprofits who are dedicated to combating every aspect of human trafficking. And we would like to thank the partners who helped us out this year, the other agencies who partnered with us for Operation Ohio Knows, Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Franklin County Hope Task Force and the Special Investigations Unit, the U.S. Marshals, Judge Jody Thomas and the Catch Court staff, Magistrate Larry Sanchez and the Empowerment Court staff, Columbus City Attorney Zach Klein and his staff, and the nearly 100 agencies and nonprofits who participated. And I just want to say that Ohio knows what's going on in our state. Ohio knows what's going on in our country, and Ohio knows what's going on in our world. So if you are buying sex from another human being or sexually exploiting another human being for your own personal gain, you better watch out, because Ohio knows, and we are coming after you. And lastly, our task force tried something a little different this year and offered victim services to the sex buyers or the Johns who were arrested. We had the privilege of having a human trafficking survivor as a part of our victim services team. Mandy Knight graduated from Catch Court in 2017 and is now the resource manager for Freedom a la carte. Mandy is joining us via Zoom today. Mandy, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, Mandy.
So, like Dana said, I am a survivor of human trafficking, and yes, I am the resource manager at Freedom a la carte. So I have the privilege of working with other survivors of sex trafficking daily. But even bigger than that, I am a mother, I'm a wife, and I'm currently a student in a forensic criminology program. I did have the privilege of accompanying Dana and her team on the John sting last week. It was a very unique experience and something I was really intrigued by. During my time in the lifestyle, when I was being trafficked, I personally never had a negative experience with law enforcement, and I'm really grateful. I knew that law enforcement was somewhere I could turn to when I felt like I needed a safe way out, and that's what happened. I was trafficked from the west side of Columbus to Backpage, which is, we know is shut down now, to Chillicothe. I was, transported by my trafficker to different places to meet dates. And throughout that, my trafficker led me to believe that he was my boyfriend, that he loved me, and that this is what we do in relationships. There was a lot of manipulation, mental torture, physical abuse, and the list goes on. But it was like Stockholm syndrome. I feel like I really believed that this is where I belonged, and that's what it was. And then when the pain got great enough and I didn't know where to turn to, thank goodness the Columbus police in the area that I was in knew who I was, and knew that I had a warrant at the time and arrested me. Like you guys shared before, arresting isn't the answer, but me going to jail and having some time to clear my thinking was a way for me to reach Catch Court, which is what helped me get where I'm at in life today. I'm really grateful for the experiences, and I'm really excited to see the changes occurring in our community with law enforcement and the legal system with sex buying, and for the survivors or victims. And I'm really grateful for the officers that played a role in my journey to get where I'm at today, because like I said, had I not been arrested, had I not went to jail, and had I not suffered some consequences for my actions in the role that I played in the decisions I was making, I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't be as successful in life as I am today. I'm really grateful to be able to speak and hopefully help make a difference, just like what everyone else here is trying to do. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. I'm Michelle Hand, and I'm with the Salvation Army here in Central Ohio, and I'm the Anti-Human Trafficking Director. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we do and how grateful we are for the partnerships for everyone here in this room and the ability to really address this issue of human trafficking collaboratively in our community, but also across the state. A little bit about us. In 2007, we had the privilege of working with community partners to start to come together in our community to combat human trafficking. And we launched our anti-human trafficking program at that time, and at the same time worked with our partners to launch the Central Ohio Reach and Restore Coalition. So today our coalition is a group of over 120 organizations that are working together across lots of different ways of approaching human trafficking. And then at that same time, our program at the Salvation Army has continued to grow, and we now play a couple of different, I think, pivotal roles here in the community. We operate Central Ohio's 24-hour human trafficking hotline and typically respond to somewhere around 300 hotline calls per year. Most of those calls involve on-scene response for survivors who are looking for assistance in getting out of the trafficking situation and also building stability in their life, addressing crises that come along through that process. We also operate kind of a range of other services that are targeted toward engaging with survivors wherever they are on their journey. So we operate drop-in center hours. We conduct street outreach. We offer trauma therapy groups for survivors who are on their recovery journey. And also provide long-term comprehensive case management so that we can really wrap services around and be there for folks through that whole journey. And one of the most critical roles that we play is our partnership with the Central Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force, and more recently our partnership with the PACT initiative within Columbus Police. We really feel that these are critical engagement opportunities, great opportunity to connect with survivors, to let them know that there really is this whole collaborative community that's ready to wrap services around them and ready to help them along that journey. And so it's been a really remarkable journey to get to this point and to see this kind of success, and the opportunity also to emphasize the importance of demand reduction and to get the word out about not buying sex in our community, not buying sex in Ohio. Over the past 14 years, we have assisted really several thousand survivors in their path toward healing. And the thing that I think I'd like to emphasize is one of the things we've most learned is you can't do this as a single organization. Even as really the coalition and all of the collaborative partners, it really takes everyone working together and bringing what they do best to make this work. So we are just so grateful for those partners and for our law enforcement partners and the work that we're able to do together. And I think it's Carrie's up.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Bull. I'm a crisis intervention specialist with Southeast Healthcare. I'm currently assigned to the HOPE Task Force with the Franklin County Sheriff's Department and the Central Ohio Human Trafficking Task Force. On behalf of Southeast Healthcare, I want to take this moment and thank you. I want to thank the local agencies for the collaboration by attempting to educate individuals in the community on reducing the demand of sex trade. Without this shift in education, resources, and the support of the community, we would not be able to gain reduction in sex trade. Through the surveys obtained on Operation Ohio Knows, we have identified common issues for many of the sex buyers who were arrested. This will help shift our focus and teach the ways for us to target those at risk. On behalf of Southeast Healthcare, we want to thank you for the efforts to reduce human trafficking that you each make every single day. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Chief Deputy Rick Minard with Franklin County Sheriff's Office, and so our contribution to the operation here was through a HOPE task force, but also our Special Investigations Unit. And I'm here on behalf of Franklin County Sheriff Dallas Baldwin. I'd like to thank you, Attorney General Yost, your staff, and all of the law enforcement and community service partners around not only Central Ohio, but the state for a successful operation. Thank you for your collaboration, not just over the last week, but every day. You know, we're proud of the number of, I'll call them predators and deviants and so forth that we've put behind bars, so this number, this 161, we're really proud of that. However, I think the thing that we're most proud about is the number here in the bottom left-hand corner and the number of people that we have offered services to hopefully break this vicious cycle that they find themselves trapped in. And so an operation like this, Ohio knows, should also serve as a reminder. It should serve as a reminder to victims that there is help and that people do care about you and your well-being. It should serve as a reminder to the community. Stay vigilant. Parents, pay attention to who your kids are interacting with and who they're communicating with in social media, and that relationships, even with trusted people, that they stay and are appropriate. Predators aren't necessarily the boogeyman. It just might be, your pharmacist, a council member, somebody who you might trust in the community. So stay vigilant. And to family and friends, look after the people that you love, who might be struggling with mental health and addiction, the people that are vulnerable in our communities, because that's who fall prey to this kind of thing. And the last is a reminder to the predators and the deviants out there that we're watching, and that Ohio does know, and we're going to come after you. We won't stand for this kind of behavior on our watch. Again, thank you, Attorney General Yost, and all of the folks that are here, even the media here. I appreciate you covering this kind of an operation to keep this on the forefront of everybody's mind. So again, so the community can stay vigilant. Again, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Streck, and I am proud and honored to be the Sheriff of Montgomery County. The first thing I want to do is thank you, Attorney General Yost, for all the support you've given us in Montgomery County and my fellow sheriffs in surrounding counties. We have 2 task forces in Montgomery County, and one of those is highly supported by Attorney General Yost and all of his people. One is a bulk currency task force, one is a drug operations task force. One thing that we were missing was the human trafficking part of that. Obviously, drugs and human trafficking are going together. Our drug dealers are now finding out it's easier to sell human beings than it is to sell dope now. So what are they doing? They're going to change like they always do to keep the money coming in. So luckily, the Attorney General's office was able to support us in developing the Miami Valley Human Trafficking Task Force, which kicked off at Operation Ohio Knows. It was a great success. Our task forces will now have that final piece they have in our triangle. We will have support through our social services to give the individuals who are being trafficked. As many people have said, when you hear prostitution is a victimless crime, you are fooling yourselves. You're telling yourselves that so you keep doing it. Very rarely is there an individual who says, this is the career path for me. Most of the time, there is an underlying influence there that has control of them. So, once again, with your help in Montgomery County and our surrounding counties, we now have another tool to help those individuals, and once again, to put the people who need to be in jail, and to help the victims who need help to get out of that lifestyle. Thank you, and thanks everybody. Sheriff.
Hello. No, good. Thanks, Sheriff Streck.
My name is Sheriff Bruce Sikowski, and I am the sheriff, proud to be sheriff of Portage County, which is in Northeast Ohio. We encompass the Cleveland District, and for those of you who are not familiar with where Portage County is, Kent State. We have the second largest college in the state, and it used to be where SeaWorld and Geauga Lake used to be. I would like to thank Attorney General Yost for the opportunity to speak today. This is a matter that we take very serious. I have some members of the task force back here with us that I brought down. They've helped me with, this has been our 5th that we've done. We've partnered up with Sheriff Fatherly to our west in Summit County over in Akron, and we've hosted 3. We had 15 arrests, 18 contacts this past week, and 2 of my officers were almost run over literally by a John that was just trying to escape and got into a short pursuit. This is a matter that we take very serious in Portage County. This was one of the top 10 questions when I was running for sheriff a little over a year ago that people were concerned about as far as their kids and human trafficking, and we realized that this is an epidemic. And this is something that I take very seriously. Like I said, this is the 5th one that we've been involved with in Portage County since January, and we're going to continue this effort. So I'm just glad that we were a part of the collaborative with the human trafficking, the largest, you said, record to date. And I was just glad that we were a part of it, and I'm very proud to be down here and be a part of this. And I guarantee you, Portage County, we will continue to take this matter very seriously, and we will continue to do what's right and try to help the innocent people out there. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Candy Fodry. I am Summit County Sheriff. We've been doing this for quite a while, human trafficking. We realize here in Summit County how important human trafficking is. It's being in the Northeast Corridor, so close to Route 71, 77, 224 runs through, as well as the turnpike running through all of our counties. It became apparent to us how important it was for us to address human trafficking. So we've been doing human trafficking events for the last few years. I want to thank Attorney Yost for coming forward and helping us put together a solid team. Our team consists of Summit County Sheriff's Office, Medina County Sheriff's Office, Portage County Sheriff's Office, and Stark County Sheriff's Office, as well as the prosecutors for Summit, Medina, Portage, and Stark. We also have the Akron Police Department, Springfield Police Department, Stowe Police Department, and Adult Parole. One of the most important things about human trafficking is not just the crime itself and making all the arrests. Our team has arrested over 158 individuals seeking to buy sex, 50 individuals offering to sell sex, and this was total statewide. 51 potential human trafficking victims, 44 potential human trafficking victims were offered services. Statewide, they did 3 internet crimes against children, and 10 missing children were recovered. When you think about the importance of these kind of task forces and how they interact with the victims, not just the subjects, but the victims, working with Rise Court, Victims Assistance, Rahab, Battered Women's Shelter, the Rape Crisis Center of Summit and Medina County, and SUMA and Cleveland Clinic hospitals, we've been addressing the human side of this for the victims. I look forward to continuing this collaboration with all of our police departments and our sheriff's offices and all the entities, as well as working with Attorney Yost and addressing a serious crime, because this is the beginning, it's not the end. And I think we have so much more work to do across the entire state. and across the nation. So I want to thank Attorney Yost for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this, and I look forward to collaborating in the future. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is J.D. Tomlinson. I'm the Lorain County prosecutor. First, I'd like to thank Attorney General Yost, members of the Organized Crime Investigations Commission, members of the Cuyahoga Regional Human Trafficking Task Force, local Lorain County law enforcement agencies, and my own investigative staff for their assistance in carrying out this important work. In Lorain County alone, we have conducted 3 successful operations in the past 6 months. During the course of these operations, we've encountered husbands trafficking wives, suspects arriving to engage in sexual activity with no money on hand, guns, and several suspected victims of human trafficking. In fact, my office is currently preparing indictments for the first human trafficking case in Lorain County's history. In that case, we've identified at least 6 victims. We believe there to be more. In turn, members of my investigative team have assisted Cuyahoga County on several human trafficking operations in surrounding counties. On a personal note, meeting with the victims of human trafficking has had a profound impact upon me. These victims have suffered at the hands of their captors is extensive and it's intolerable. As such, my office will continue to work diligently with the aforementioned agencies in an effort to provide assistance and hope to the victims and severe punishment for those who choose to traffic in human beings. Thank you again, Attorney General Yost, for having me.
Thank you to all of our partners. And it seems like a lot of people came up to the microphone, but please recognize that was only 10% of the people that participated, the agencies that participated. We're happy to take a few questions if anyone has any. Yes, sir. I hope somebody else could hear him through the mask because I couldn't quite make out.
The question was about the 10 missing children from the Marshals part of the sting. I don't know if someone's from the Marshals would like
Commander Hess?
Dang.
You want to talk about that? We'll get
follow
that
up with additional
for you.
information.
Thank you.
Attorney General, I think they mentioned there were 50 victims who were offered services. Do we know how many total victims there were and ultimately what happened with them? Have they been, are they in safe places now?
Dana, why don't you take this one? The question was for the women that were offered services. 50 of them were offered services. Were there others, and do we know where they were? Are they in a safe place?
So each victim that we attempt to offer services to speaks with the victim services that are assigned to every team. It's our goal to make sure that they are in a safe place when they leave the operation that we are participating in. As far as where their whereabouts are across the state, I don't have that specific information at this time, but I can tell you that many of them are in drug treatment facilities now or are receiving outpatient care from social services.
And how many total victims do we know of?
Total victims for this operation? I'd have to look. I don't want to quote the wrong stat for you, sir. I'm pretty sure it's around 50, Bethany, was that correct? I don't have the final statistics in
What
front
was
of me.
offered services. We will make sure it goes out to everyone here.
Yes,
So we'll
absolutely.
provide
Thank you.
additional details.
Just a quick reminder, the focus on this was not to make arrests of survivors, the people who were perhaps selling, but to go after the supply or the demand side with the Johns.
That leads perfectly into my question. This is the third year that you've done this operation. Why was it important for you to have the focus on the John side of things this year?
So in past years, we've had a multilateral, multi-prong approach. So some of the units were looking to identify the victims of human trafficking. Others were trying to get behind that and look at the traffickers themselves. Some were looking at internet crimes against children, and we have successfully taken off some people who were looking for 13, 14-year-old children. This year, we were focusing on demand reduction because we want to send a message to everybody in Ohio, everybody in the country: don't buy sex in Ohio. The days of a wink and a slap on the wrist are over. The days where this is a low priority operation for law enforcement are over. And we want to make the point that you're not just going out there on a private thing between two consenting adults. You're taking the risk that that person is being trafficked, and that's the point of this year's operation.
Hi, I'm Lila Goldstein. I'm with WYSO. I first want to thank your office and Steve and all the other law enforcement agencies that have been helping me collect data about the stings in Ohio, the human trafficking stings. And I've looked at the data for human trafficking stings that your office has put out press releases for since 2020. And the people that your office says were rescued or identified victims of human trafficking, at least 2/3 of them were actually arrested or charged. And I'm wondering, do you see a problem with that? And is that also the case with this sting?
So thank you for the question. And this is actually a debate within the community that works with survivors of human trafficking. It's unquestioned, and we heard from Mandy Knight earlier today. She says if she hadn't been arrested, she would not have had that launch pad to become the successful survivor that she is today. And I think we need to recognize that for many survivors, the road to recovery and sobriety leads through an arrest and an intensive program like Catch Court that helps them be able to recognize their trauma and their reactions to it, and how to eventually, in a very long journey, walk away from that. It's also true that an arrest can re-traumatize someone, and that there are times when a person is arrested and they're not ready to deal with what has happened to them, what's been done to them. So it's an ongoing debate. There aren't any easy answers. I think to say a no arrest policy under any circumstances is the right way to go, it totally ignores the success stories like Mandy Knight. At the same token, I think it's extraordinarily important to recognize that when an arrest is necessary, it needs to be effected in a non-traumatic way. We're not talking about somebody here who's a predator or a murderer or a big-time cartel drug dealer, and it doesn't require a command voice and a lot of force and a confrontation. And in the interactions that I've witnessed over the last 3 years as Attorney General, I'm proud to report that that is the norm when officers encounter a survivor. So. I'm sorry, what about that? Well, I'm not present for all of them, so I can only speak to what I have seen, which is, fewer than a dozen interactions. I will tell you, this last week I was in Cleveland for the pre-operation briefing, and that the commander there made a point of instructing the officers that if an arrest was necessary, that it needed to be conducted in that kind of a low-key, non-confrontational way. Okay, glad to talk to you about it. And as I say, this is a developing conversation. As a former prosecutor, a year ago, I would have said, you need to arrest. That supervised probation through the criminal court system is critical to helping people navigate the very difficult road to recovery. In my experience since then, and Michelle, thank you. Michelle came to the office. We had a debate, didn't we? Invited a bunch of people to come in, and I listened. And as I've gotten to know survivors that didn't come through the system or came through the system and had difficulties, I've realized that it's a much more nuanced conversation. But I think everybody in the conversation that is actually familiar with this work recognizes that there are many, many roads to recovery, and they don't all look alike.
You had mentioned the professions of some of the people who were arrested: a city council member, a firefighter, a professor. What can you tell us specifically about those individuals, who they are, where they are from, and also what does this say about who could be arrested for these crimes?
Well, we're happy to give you that information and the details. Bethany will give you names, addresses, and that sort of thing. As to the larger question, it's important to realize this isn't just some kind of street crime that only happens among certain kinds of people. The inclusion of those professions is designed to make all of us realize that this is happening everywhere. This could be your neighborhood, your neighbor. You might live in a wonderful neighborhood of valuable homes and sound, intact families and have nice schools, and yet there very well could be one of your neighbors who's engaging in this, accepting the risk that they're complicit in human trafficking, and that's the point. Anybody else?
General, since we're here at the State House, I figured I'd ask you what your thoughts are on what the legislature has and has not passed as far as addressing human trafficking. What have you liked that they've passed? What would you still like to see? I know that the expansion of the Human Trafficking Justice Act is something that's been introduced in a bipartisan way here in the House and Senate. So what have you liked, and what would you like to see more of from the state legislature?
Well, I'm very grateful to the leadership of the General Assembly. Since I've been in office, they have removed an absurd and irrational exception for 16 and 17-year-olds who had been trafficked. That was a huge benefit. Separating the selling and buying of sex into separate offenses and making the buying of it more a more serious crime, a huge change. And I ought to mention the members of our office's Human Trafficking Initiative, who had a large part in helping get those changes, are here today. Jen Roush, our legal director, Jamel Aird, Emily, thank you for your work. What remains to be done? One of the things that needs to be done is an offense similar to receiving stolen property, receiving proceeds of prostitution. This is a tool that will enable us to go after the traffickers themselves using techniques that the law enforcement has already perfected in another area of property crime. Another thing that I would love to see, and I understand that it's controversial and people think it's mean, I don't care. I want to see a John registry that's publicly facing, because we're not going to cut demand significantly until people are afraid that their wives or their girlfriends or their daughters are going to find out what they've been up to. And it's time to make that collected in one place and publicly visible, because that is a bigger deterrent than even the arrest. even more than a fine. And I'm hoping that that will get revisited by the legislature. Florida has it. We ought to be able to keep up with Florida.
We have a question online from Cameron Knight with the Cincinnati Enquirer.
Hi, Mr. Yost. I wanted to ask this morning about one of the high-profile cases that you guys have been dealing with human trafficking, the Michael Moran case. We received word this weekend that one of the key people involved in trying to kind of expose him, Katie Lancaster, was killed, or not killed, sorry, was found dead over the weekend. And I wanted to ask you if your office is aware of that, what you're doing to protect the other women out there, if there's any indication that this was connected to her work trying to uncover things. And I know Jen Roush is there as well, if she wanted to speak to it as well.
Well, thank you. That case is currently under indictment. In fact, Jen Roush, who I'm not going to make come to the microphone, but she's been appointed a special prosecutor and is actually prosecuting that case. She will shoot me if I talk about it, because the judge will hold her in contempt and send her to jail. So I'm not going to talk about anything specific, but it is important to point out that those who human traffic don't use chains and locks to keep victims under control. The most common thing is drugs. Get a woman addicted to drugs, let her go through withdrawal once, she'll never want to do that again, and they use the promise of the next dose of heroin or whatever it is to keep them under control. And that's something that our partners, both social service and law enforcement, see day after day, time after time.
Today has been on the Johns. Did these arrests lead to arrests of traffickers, and can you give us an idea of what's happening to them? We've heard complaints in the past that these charges have been pled down to minor charges. Are you using the new tools that the legislature gave you?
So it's important to recognize that plea negotiations are up to local prosecutors. We work with our local prosecutors and encourage them not to plead these sorts of cases down, but they're dependent on a lot of factors. We have to produce testimony and evidence. Sometimes things go south in terms of a prosecution. But we support our prosecutors and try to keep this elevated as an important case. We did have several contacts. I will defer to Sergeant Hess to talk operationally, but I will point out that in many, many situations, these to get to a human trafficker is like getting to a drug kingpin. They're not out on the street. They're not easy to find. They're not easy to make the case against. So it's one by one, small cases. You work your way up until you finally can make that case. JD knows that human trafficking cases are hard to build, hard to prosecute. But when we get there, there's a big payoff. There's a big hammer for that charge. And we always have our eye on trying to get there. Sergeant Hess?
Thank you, sir. Yes, in our operation, I can't speak to every single operation that occurred in the state. However, in our operation, the day that we had to attempt to locate victims of human trafficking, and as Layla pointed out, all 10 of ours were summoned in our case. 4 of the 10 females that we spoke to, who were interviewed by our investigators, either identified potential human traffickers or are victims in our current cases. These cases are extremely complex investigations and take a very, very long time to investigate and prosecute. It's a long process. It can take up to a year and a half. And the tool that we have at times in order to get in front of these victims, sometimes our only tool is arrest. And we struggle with it as a task force as well. So one of the things that we do to combat that struggle is to make sure that we have victim services available the entire time. We give them food, we try to make sure that they have a safe place to go to as soon as they're done, whether it's a housing facility or a hotel, worst case scenario. We're constantly trying to take care of those victims. But in order to reach the traffickers, we have to get in front of victims. And that's just the hardest piece of the puzzle for us.
I want to thank you all for coming and
We have one more.
one more question.
Sorry, last question is an online question, and that's for Allison Walker out of Dayton.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time today, and thanks so much for all that you're doing in the fight to end human trafficking in our state. Attorney General, is this the first statewide sting operation where Johns will face the increased charge of a first-degree misdemeanor? What's the impact of these increased penalties, and what other laws do you think need to change to elevate the stakes?
Thank you. This is the first time that we've done a statewide focus on the demand side with the new law. We're very grateful for that, and we're going to be tracking how all that works. Watch for some additional developments that we will be undertaking to support the other side of convictions here. I think I mentioned a few of the changes that we'll be looking for. The other thing is to recognize that human trafficking is only recently been recognized as being a major issue. And by that, I mean in the last 10 to 15 years. For a long time, there was little attention and no real policy development on it. Now that we've got these active operations, we're learning more and more about human behavior, about the survivors, about the interactions between the traffickers and their victims, how the customers fit into all of that. As we learn and continue these operations, we will continue to evaluate state law, our operational techniques, and how we can be more effective. I'm sure that there are ideas that we haven't even thought of that we'll be pushing for a year from now. But I appreciate the broad experience that's coming to us through all of our partners, from social services to prosecutors' offices, from sheriff's offices to our federal partners and our big city partners in big city police departments as well. Thank you all for coming. I'm afraid I have to go, but